What's up guys, today we're going to be going over the Cold Front, which is the Dawning SMG, and in this video we will be breaking down how to farm this weapon, all the different perks on it, and going over the god roll, then overall why I believe it's one of the best primaries in the entire game for PvE. Before we get into the video, my G Fuel code is back to being 30% off through the 21st, so go ahead and click the link in the comments description and visit their store and take advantage of that discount. So let's go ahead and begin with how to get this weapon. Once you have the Dawning stuff going and you have your oven, the best way to farm the essence is from the Legend Lost sectors, and you can do this with a fire team. And every single time you open a chest you get 16 or 17 essence. Then once you have a bunch of essence, you can go into the Shatter Throne, into the Thrall Hallway after the Ogre, and get a bunch of ingredients and bake pretty much whatever cookies you can, turn them in, you get gifts back, then those gifts will give you the 3 Dawning weapons, one of them being the Cold Front. So pretty much you just farm the Thrall Hallway, then the Legend Lost sectors back and forth, and bake a bunch of cookies, and that is how you farm this weapon. And what makes this weapon so special is that it's a 750 RPM SMG in the kinetic slot, and it is one of 2 kinetics ever that are 750s, and the only energy one is the Achilles SMG. So right now those are the 2 750 RPM SMGs in the game. Then there is also the Huckleberry, which is an exotic. So there's only 3 in the entire game right now, 1 in kinetic, 1 in energy, then 1 exotic. And what makes 750s so special is they're pretty much the sweet spot of all sweet spots for SMGs. They almost have the same damage of 600 RPMs, the same range of the 600 RPMs, but shoot quicker. So all in all, they're pretty much just 600 RPMs that shoot a little bit quicker. And this one came out last Dawning, and this Dawning, it has new perks on it. And let me tell you, these perks are really good. There are so many good perks in the right slot. You pretty much have your picks of pretty much every good perk in the game. Then in the left slot, there's gonna be 2 perks I want to talk about. The first being Subsistence. Kills partially reload the magazine from reserves, but reserve capacity is reduced. So every time you get a kill with this perk, you get 3 bullets straight back to the magazine from reserves, which means if you have a good damage perk and you're not really spraying it, you can pretty much never have to reload. But for most situations, obviously you're gonna have to reload eventually. So think of this perk like triple tap or something like that, where it's going to just extend your magazine and make you have to reload less often. But by far the best perk in left slot is going to be Surplus. Increases handling, reload speed, and stability for each fully charged ability. And this is going to be pretty much the only traditional reload perk, and also stability perk in the left slot. So it's going to be doing 2 things for this SMG that will help greatly. The stability is going to be pretty much a must because the stability on this weapon is so low, and that was pretty much your guys' main complaint last season when it came out. But now with Surplus on it, if we test with no Surplus on mouse and keyboard and controller, then with 1 ability, 2 abilities, and 3 abilities, and we show the different results, you will see that stability really isn't an issue on this SMG anymore. So I'm just going to go ahead and let these tests play out, then the commentary will continue once that's over. So as you saw throughout all those different tests, pretty much Surplus cuts the recoil in half. It went from going up like 2 entire rectangles to not even 1 on controller. So obviously that is extremely good and pretty much makes it the go-to perk in the left slot. And you could even pair that with something like a stability masterwork and even steady rounds if you need more stability on controller. Now on top of that, Surplus will also be the main reload perk. So first, with no abilities and no reload perks on my gloves, it takes 2.292 seconds. Then if we put on SMG loader and do that again with 1 ability, it's gonna be a lot quicker now at 1.7 seconds. Then we have 2 abilities, it's gonna go even quicker at 1.5. Then finally, with all 3 abilities and SMG loader, it's going to be 1.2 seconds. So surplus doesn't only give you great stability, it also gives you good reload speed. So now if we look at the right column, there's going to be 3 damage perks I want to look at. The first being surrounded plus surrounded spec. And this one's going to be pretty much the worst because you have to be surrounded by 3 enemies to have the buff. And that's going to take the damage to 570 and the base damage is 407. So surrounded plus surrounded spec is 40% increase on this weapon, but you have to be surrounded by 3 enemies to have that buff. Compared to rampage plus rampage spec, this is going to be a little bit lower damage. As you'll see, it goes up by roughly 11% per stack, all the way up to 542, and that's going to be 33% increase with ×3, which is obviously lower than surrounded, but it's going to be a lot easier to get that stack and maintain it. But the best damage perk is going to be one for all, which is going to work a lot like rampage, but instead of getting 3 kills, all you have to do is hit 3 enemies to get the full buff that will last for 10 seconds, and that buff will now hit for 550, which means it's going to be a 35% increase, which is higher than rampage. And unlike rampage and surrounded where we needed surrounded and rampage spec, we can use minor spec with one for all, which will mean it's actually the highest damage buff of all of them, now taking the damage to 592, which is going to be 45% increase. So one for all is the highest buff, and in my opinion, it's the easiest to get. It's pretty much the same as rampage, where you have to get 3 kills, but with one for all you have to do is hit 3 enemies, which in my opinion makes it the easiest to get and maintain, and pretty much the only damage perk that will really work in hard activities, for example like world's first raids and things like that, because you only have to hit 3 enemies to get that full 45% buff. So yeah, definitely the best damage perk on the weapon. But right now there is also Dragonfly on a kinetic primary, and DMG already confirmed on Twitter that this is not intentional, and it doesn't say they're going to remove the perk, it just says they're going to investigate. So I'm not quite sure if it's going to stick around for that long. I would assume not, because if you use Dragonfly on this weapon, you can definitely tell it's not meant to be here. Half the time the Dragonfly is invisible, you can't even see it. And you can also pair this with Dragonfly spec like normal, and that will increase the damage and radius of the explosions, which once again it's hard to see because half the time the explosions are invisible, but it feels like it does have a bigger radius, and you can kind of tell its solar damage, which means you can use Wrath of Rasputin, Global Reach, and also Rage of the Warmind to create Warmind cells. And throughout this video we were comparing it to the Ikelis SMG, which is the Energy 750 RPM, and in terms of perks I think the Cold Front is better, but the only thing it was missing was the ability to create Warmind cells, and technically with Dragonfly you can create Warmind cells as of right now. Who knows how long that will last, so I wouldn't get used to it, but you know, it's pretty much the Ikelis SMG in the kinetic slot. So overall I'm definitely a fan of this SMG. I think 750 RPMs are the best SMGs in the game, and the only issue with Cold Front in the past was the stability, but now that we have Surplus, which will give us stability and reload speed at the same time, I think that's going to help greatly and make it a lot more usable even for controller users. Then in the right slot now, it has pretty much your pick of the 3 best damage perks in the game. Surrounded plus surrounded spec is really good if you're playing really aggressive with Devour or something like that. Rampage is going to be that old classic that a lot of people like to use just because it does exactly what it needs to do, no more, no less. And then finally we have the new damage perk one for all, which in my opinion is the best damage perk in the entire game because it's the highest percent with minor spec. Then also lasts for 10 seconds and is really easy to proc in pretty much anything in the entire game. And finally right now we have Dragonfly with Dragonfly spec, which allows the weapon to create Warmind cells and also have really good group ad clear, but that might not be around for too long, so I want to get used to it. But for right now it's something that's cool and you can kind of mess around with it. So if we ignore Warmind cells, I think Cold Front is the best primary in Destiny 2 for PvE right now in theory, but given the fact that Warmind cells are in the game and once you spawn one in, you pretty much clear the entire room anyways. Obviously the Ikelis SMG is probably still the best for the meantime, but eventually, you know, that will be sunset and something like this could be the best choice. And given that they haven't changed the Dawning event in 3 years now, and every year they just add a new weapon to the pool and have the old existing ones, you know, they'll probably just keep updating the light level on Cold Front, so it might just be a weapon that will never be sunset. So I'm definitely happy with the kinetic primaries I've gotten in Beyond Light. Between this and the High Albedo, we have 2 really good choices for PvE right now in the kinetic slot. So yeah, this one's definitely worth farming. I'm going to be farming it for a Surplus and one for all roll, then also a Surplus and Dragonfly roll in case that doesn't get removed. And those are, in my opinion, the 2 god rolls on this weapon. Anyways, let me know which perks you're going to be farming for on this weapon. Thanks for watching. Catch you guys next time.